Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. How is everyone doing? Happy Sunday. Wow. This past week has been an unbelievable week for me in the hobby. I've had my biggest come up yet on a card. I've hit some absolute bangers in a couple breaks this week, and I had a huge upcharge from PSA. Uh, some weeks are business as usual. Some weeks just don't go your way. You just take a beating. And every now and then, just have an unbelievably great week. And this last week was one of them for me. And unfortunately, everything I've just talked about, none of them are in my possession. I'd be sitting home waiting for FedEx or USPS or UPS somebody to start delivering these things because I'm super excited. I can't wait to have them in my possession. And I'm hoping by my next solo episode, I'll have some of these things to go over. But just being so excited, just got to say something, just shout it out like, yeah, it's been a great week. Thank the hobby gods. Right? Riding that high heading into this week. I'm doing a little traveling, and then I will be back Friday to prepare for the East Coast Collectibles Convention at the Mohegan Sun Casino. That is a 2-day show. It's next weekend, June 14th and 15th. And even more exciting, it's not news. Talked about it on the last live episode with the Hobby Chop, but the trio, Tyler, Zip, and me, will be hosting the trade night there Saturday night. So if you're coming to the show on Saturday, the show ends at 6 and trade night begins at 6:30. And we'll also be recording an episode live from trade night Saturday night. So it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. And if you're going to be there, definitely plan on hanging out for trade night. So let's jump into today's episode. So I did hit a show this morning. I got up, I went down to the Orange show in Orange, Connecticut. I was down there early. I'm glad I did. I had a few pickups down there. Was happy I did it. But, just walking around, talking to the dealers, looking in the cases, right, and seeing a lot of half-empty cases. Not everybody, but just some people. And I've been hearing the same thing for the last month or so that, from a lot of fellow dealers over and over, I have no inventory. I'm bought out. I'm sold out. I'm worried about my next shows or these upcoming shows that I'm not going to have cards to put in my case, which almost puts them at a desperate level, right? Like I really need to buy cards to put them in my case because I don't want to show up at a show with no cards in my case. And I know a lot of people, this is what you do. And I see people do this all the time. Show up in an empty case, shop the room, buy cards. And I don't think it's as easy as it once was to do that. And I don't think the values and the percentages are there enough to make that worthwhile. So I mean, I know people do it. I like to prepare. I like to be prepared for the show. I want to show up with good inventory, with a game plan, knowing what I'm doing. I'm not going to leave it to chance that I'm going to show up in the room and be able to go around and buy cards from fellow dealers that I'm going to put in my case and be able to make a profit on. I'm not going to put that much risk into my shows. A lot of people I know have been selling football at shows straight through the winter, right up until now. Never stopped, just buying and selling, grading, dropping those cards in the case. And if you listen to the past episodes, I talk about just trying to time the market. The people who've been buying these cards up, they know that the market is going to start rising on these cards. It happens every year, some more than others, some cards more than others. Some cards are going to go down. Not every card is going to go up. But if you've been listening to what I've been saying, and if you've been buying up these cards and just holding on to them, trying to time the market, you only have to hold them for about another 30 days before they'll mature. And remember, if you're having trouble buying, so is everybody else. So is everybody else out there. Um, to me, when you see this stuff going on, you hear people saying this more than once, hearing it at multiple shows, hearing it over a period of time. That's the time just to sit back and say, all right, it's time to make an adjustment because I hear this, I see this is going on, right? So when I hear that, I put a plan together, right? These are the times that I'm trying to go in and just snipe football cards, right? Try to go in. Somebody just got an order back from PSA. Somebody's putting cards in their case. They're showing up because they've just graded these cards. They just had a grading bill, right? They want to, right? These are the cards I want to try to go in and buy at today's prices, right? A percentage off, but buying at today's prices, knowing that that value is more than likely going to pop up on some players, not all. But I just say it's time to put a plan together. I've been planning out my upcoming shows and what I'm going to be selling at those shows, right? Not sexy by any means. What my plans are, right? I have the Mohegan Sun show coming up this weekend. I'm going to be selling mostly WNBA stuff. And I know a lot of people, even that I talked to in Orange, they're like, man, I really need to, buy some cards. I really need to get some cards in my case for next week. I'm not worried about that. I have a ton of football cards here. I'm not bringing, I'm leaving 90% of my football cards back in the office, right? Maybe even more. I'll bring some football, but mostly going to be selling WNBA stuff that I had graded, the select stuff, the origins, some Prism. I really haven't graded that much Prism, and the Prism that I've sent off the grading, and mostly it's still sitting in grading. And very little of it has come back. So that will be at a later date, maybe August, September, when these cards decide to come back. If you've been sending cards in bulk, they've just been sitting there. I sent stuff in at the beginning of May, and they're listed on PSA's website to be done at the end of August. So I don't expect to see those cards anytime soon. And anything I really want, I've been sending in. I sent on the May special, $39.99 a card, but it has to make sense, right? The price has to make sense on that. Even some football cards I've sent in because I want them. I want them pre-national to be able to try to move some of those cards. So yeah, WNBA stuff this weekend. This will be the best weekend I probably have to sell. Last year, I say no the show. Last year at Mohegan Sun, I sold a lot of WNBA stuff. This last year they had a game going on. The Connecticut Sun had a game going on. Brought a lot of people in to the show. This year they have a game going on. Same thing. Sunday afternoon there's a game. So I think last year was a Saturday night game. This year is a Sunday afternoon game. I'm hoping it's going to bring some WNBA fans in to do some buying. I have to price them accordingly. On some of these I have to price a little bit aggressively, right? Because if not, they may just turn into stale cards. My next step is selling them in Facebook groups and things like that. So hopefully it's going to be a good weekend to sell those cards. I'm definitely going to be sprinkling in some Caitlin Clark and Paige Becker's cards in there. Nothing, too big. On Paige, I'll sell whatever I have of her. But with the Caitlin, nothing too big, holding a lot of that stuff. And I have a bunch of Bowman U basketball. As you remember, I ripped that whole case. So I have a lot of cards. I've gone through, figured out who's still in college and who's going off to the draft, making lots of those of those cards. So, a little bit of work to put in, but I have plenty of stuff to sell. I don't need to be selling football. I'm going to have some football there, not much, and it's probably going to be priced a little high for most people. I know I have the Causeway show coming up July 12th, right? And that to me will be the perfect time to break out all this Don Russ and Prism football, all these PSA 10s, and and even mostly from the 2024 class, but 2021, 22, 23. I have other players that are sprinkled in there of cards that I just been picking up along the way, and just adding them to um, that inventory that I'll break out then, mid-July, pre-national, right? I did this last year, but because of scheduling, I broke out all the football at the Chantilly show, and that was at the end of June. And even then, I thought I was a little bit early. I was the most popular guy there, um, as far as selling football, because a lot of people weren't selling football at that show. So I still think it was a little early at the end of June. So this year, I'm happy to have the Causeway show. And if I didn't have Causeway, I was going to find a show that was going to fall within a week or two of the national, because that to me is the best time, because so many people are looking to buy that inventory now to take to the national, and I don't want to be lugging all this stuff out to Chicago and carrying it around. I just as soon move it now, take some of that money, reinvest in maybe some bigger cars, a handful of bigger cars that I'll carry with me out to the national. Um, Also creating a whole separate inventory to take to the West Coast Card Show in August. Um, that would have been my national cards or my national box had I been setting up there this year. Um, but because I'm not, they're packed away. I'll be bringing them to Anaheim in August. Um, and I have to make that trip worthwhile too. So I have to, right, get into the right cards, because I don't want to be bringing Don Russ PSA 10s out to. I mean, I know they'd sell, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be in a room in a show that big with cards that everybody else is going to have. Every card that I'm going to put in my case out there is going to be a little bit more rare, scarce, numbered, auto, something that makes it a little different, a little special, so it'll stand out at a show like that. That's a whole other level of inventory, right? That I've just been preparing for that show. Um, but for everyone else who's been getting bought out, been selling out their football and not being able to replace it, um, that's what you're up against this time of year. People like me and other people just buying that stuff but not selling, saying it's a good short-term hold right now. And nobody knows what those percentages. I can't sit here and say, well, if you do it now, you're going to make 12% or 18% or 22. I have no idea what those percentages will be, but I know they're going to be pretty good, right? It's going to be an increased percentage than what you would make on that card right now had you bought it and then turn around and put it in your case to flip it. And my advice to you, if you do have football and you don't need to sell it, right? Strong hands. Hold those cards another 3 or 4 weeks. And if you've been listening and doing what I've been saying and picking these things up, hold them 3 or 4 more weeks for maximum profit. Um, and if you are selling, you're saying, geez, I got to go to a show, or I just need to move some of these cards. My suggestion, especially hearing everybody else saying, I can't find inventory to buy, right? Sell it at a higher percentage than you would normally would this time of year, right? You don't have to tell people, well, I'm selling it. I'm selling it higher because I know it's going to be worth that a few weeks from now, because people don't like to hear that. I don't like to hear that. I just say, hey, that's my price, right? Um, if you're normally selling at 80 or 85%, bump it up 90, 92%, whatever your percentages are. it means more haggling. But if people have, people have purchased tables at shows or upcoming shows, they need inventory to put in their case. So strong hands this time of year. Last week, right, for me at the big show, I sold one football card. I probably had 10 football cards in my case. And people are like, you're a little high on the cards. I'm like, yeah, I am. You're right. I'm not really in a hurry to sell them right now. The price is the price. And I'll negotiate a little bit, but I'm not going to be moving I'm not going to be moving football this time of year at 80 or 82% or 85%. I'll put it in my case, but it's going to be a little bit higher than what I normally would. I'm not jacking it up. I'm not asking 100. I've been to shows where I see people say, 120%. Well, that's what it's going to be in July. And what do we all say? It's not July. So I'm not, I'm putting cards in my case that I feel like, what? Maybe that price is going to be the same now as it is 3 or 4 weeks from now, right? Just so I have a little football in the case. And these rookies from this, I say the rookies from the 2024 class, there's my thought is they're still going to be in demand next year, right? Because this 2025 draft class is weak compared to 2024. So I think this 2024 draft class, these players play well. I think they're going to stay in demand because there's nobody really new to chase next year when the new products is coming out. This may be the first year, depending on values, that I may recommend holding some cards right into the fall, after the season start. I say every year, like, I sleep like a baby, right? Because I'm selling everything in August before the NFL starts, So the only thing I'm up against is somebody getting hurt in training camp. I mean, but when the season starts and, we start basing values on performance levels, more go down than go up. So I've always been, let's just sell that, right? But this year, I mean, if we look back at 2021 draft class, though we saw how well those 2021 rookies were selling in 2022 because of the weak class in 2022. And those 2021 rookies, they were failing. I mean, just miserably failing right before our eyes. And we were still buying and selling the cards because who else were we going to buy and sell? There was nobody else new coming out that we were looking to buy or sell. So we were still stuck on the draft class from the year before. So look, if you can afford to hold on to these cards just a little bit longer, I suggest do it. I have a feeling we're going to see a decent upswing on these cards because we had a good sample size of what some of these, and I'm talking the draft class. I'm going straight to quarterbacks right now. We saw a pretty good sample size of what some of these quarterbacks can do, and I think they're impressive, and I think we could see a decent upswing. We know some of these guys are going to have all the rage. As we go into July, there's going to be one or two that everybody's chasing, right? And I mean, it could just be stay on Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, right? But it could be somebody else too. So we just kind of sit back, wait, see what happens, right? Hold on to strong hands, right? Just strong hands. Tell me what you think. Are you holding? Are you selling? That's it. I'm getting rid of them. I'm just dumping them, buying them and selling them. Are you selling at a higher percentage if you are selling, or is it just business as usual? I'm sticking to my percentages, and that's, I have a business plan, and I'm just sticking to that. Like I said, this week I'm traveling. I will be dropping an episode on Thursday. I have a great impromptu interview with Chuck Bird, M&TCards. A lot of people know Chuck, great guy. I'm going to drop that interview on Thursday. And Mohegan Sun, Saturday and Sunday, I am at table number 82. If you're looking for table numbers, but I will be set up at the show. And a reminder, the Hobby Chop will be set up. We'll be recording live Saturday night, and we'll be hosting trade night. So if you're at the show, please stick around. Come to trade night, say hello. And I look forward to seeing everybody and anybody who comes on Saturday and Sunday. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.